Alright, so today I'm giving you guys my 2 cents on The Hollow, a Netflix animated show that has 2 full seasons on the service already. And I had heard of this one and it always looked interesting. I just always had more important shows that I wanted to touch on, as well as other shows that I wanted to watch just for my own personal enjoyment, so I never really got around to looking into this one. And even though I only looked at the first episode for this video, I do expect I'll go back to the show more. It's just I feel like I've got a pretty solid feel for everything this show is about after just this first one, and that is the point of this series. And yet, I'm not entirely broken up that it took me this long to actually get into this one. I'm intrigued enough that I will give more episodes a shot, but at the same time, not so intrigued that I feel like I missed out on anything. And that's not to say that this isn't a quality show. There's definitely a lot of quality on display here. The locations look fantastic. The show has great atmosphere all around. It feels very mysterious, which is obviously the intention, since this is primarily a mystery show. The 3 main characters have amnesia, for God's sake. They're trying to figure out who they are on top of everything else. Obviously, it's a mystery. And the designs of those 3 characters are straight up great. Even if I do feel like the voice acting behind them could be a little better, their voices sound a little generic. Especially considering that the character designs themselves are kind of interesting. This group feels diverse, but at the same time, the fact that they do have amnesia, really only knowing things that are pertinent to them solving the problems around them, and cracking puns and stuff, obviously, makes it a little hard to get a feel for who they are, which is probably the point, but it makes it hard to get invested in them. Especially the character of Kai, who I just don't like at all yet. I'm not entirely sure what he brings to the table here. It definitely feels like the other characters, Adam and Mira, have skills that could be useful, and it's implied a little bit that Kai might be immune to certain kinds of harm. But at the same time, his rapport with the other members of this group feels counterproductive, and I'll talk about that in a second. Meanwhile, you have Adam and Mira, who seem to get along well. Their personalities complement each other. They tend to think the same way, at least most of the time. And like, if Kai thought in a way that was contrary to them, and yet still helpful, like he thought outside the box, whereas they were more conventional or something, it would be one thing. But really, he works against them more often than not. It's frustrating. Meanwhile, Adam and Mira seem to also have implied abilities. Mira seems, I don't know, hers is a little more vague. Maybe like super intuitive, because she's able to intuit a word they need to solve a puzzle, and then later she seems to be able to interpret what an owl is feeling just from its hoots. And Adam has very much main character, main hero vibes to him. He's super physically abled, like he has, that probably came out wrong. He can do flips and shit, and he's a little super strong, and maybe has martial arts abilities, is all I meant. And frankly, giving us a 3-person cast, and then seemingly centering him so much as the main hero of the story, which, like, it feels like they're trying not to do that, but at the same time, that's clearly what's happening. Then framing Mira as the reasonable one who more often than not agrees with him and takes his side, and Kai like the unreasonable one. It really does feel like this isn't a 3-person main cast. It's a 1-person main cast with a pair of supporting characters, and it kind of takes you out of it, because I was expecting more of a balance between these people. And I understand that one of the points of the show is probably going to be these characters growing and learning to work together. Teamwork's probably going to be a theme in this thing, because I can't imagine why you would put characters as different as Adam and Kai together if that weren't the point. But in the opening section of this episode, where they're trapped in a room Saw style and have to work their way out, it definitely felt like someone had built the puzzle of that room around them. In fact, this shows a very specific vibe that I'll touch on in a second. But in that situation, Kai brought literally nothing to the table, so I have to wonder if all of this has a purpose behind it. It really does feel like these characters are wandering through a world built for them to solve their way out of it. So if each one of them is intended to serve a role here in this group, is Kai literally just supposed to be a wrench in the works? to make it more difficult for the other characters to make it through. That'd be an interesting twist, I think. But I definitely don't feel like that's the direction the show is going. I definitely feel like he's supposed to be the sometimes endearing comic relief, sometimes annoying side character that we're supposed to want to see grow. And right now, I couldn't care less if he's in the show or not. If he disappeared at the very beginning of the next episode with no explanation and was either just gone forever or replaced by a less insufferable character, I wouldn't care at all, not even slightly. But meanwhile, again, like I said, I don't like Adam and Mira that much more, frankly. There's not much to them yet. Adam is smart, reasonable, capable, take charge guy, and Mira is smart, capable, mediator, empathic girl. There's really, I mean, that's it. And seeing as how this is the first episode, this is the one that's supposed to grab you. Like, even if they do have amnesia, I was expecting little glimmers of personality to shine through in these characters that would hook us and make us want to learn more about them. But, like, as generic as they feel here, I kind of can't help but think that anything we learn about them is going to feel equally generic. It's probably not, but that's just the way it feels at this point. I'm also kind of legit bummed by how this episode ended. It was going so strong. They were in a creepy woods that had fantastic atmosphere, cool backgrounds. They found a weird science lab in the middle of the woods. It seems like they're trapped by an electric fence. They have to get through it. And they do. They get through it. And I'm like, okay, they're moving on to a new section of this woods. We're going to get to see more of this cool environment. In fact, Adam even found a map that only shows one section of the woods. I was thinking maybe this is going to be some kind of weird magic or super tech map that only reveals more of itself as they solve more puzzles, helping them decide which way to go forward. But instead, they run into this weird, like, genie-esque character who I found immediately put offish. I wasn't drawn to this character at all. Like, even more viscerally than Kai, I do not like this character and don't want to see him again. I found him profoundly annoying. And rather than the characters having to solve their way out of their problems as they had up to this point, having to be thoughtful and observant, this character just whisks them away magically to somewhere else. And that genuinely disappointed me. It didn't feel like that was the kind of show that this was, and then suddenly that's the kind of show that this is. Because up until that point, this show felt very much like an animated version of one of those old point-and-click adventure games, or, speaking from a more modern perspective, one of those quick-time adventure games, right? Where in order to succeed, you have to be observant and check everything in a given area, explore all of your options, and then react appropriately when action stuff starts happening around you. And that the thrill of the show was going to be seeing these characters reason their way out of puzzles, seeing if maybe you can solve the puzzles even before they do, in some instances, while they unravel the mysteries of this world and figure out who they are and why they're here, why it seems like they're being treated like animals in a cage. And in a context like that, it would make more sense for one of these characters to feel like the central hero, while the other characters around him feel like either assets or hindrances. Think of something like Telltale's The Walking Dead or something, right? But bringing in this seemingly chaotic and unpredictable supernatural element to this that can solve the character's problems so easily, like he says there's going to be a cost, but like at this point there's no indication of what that is or how bad it's going to be. I can't account it in my criticisms of this show, right? This character, he can solve all their problems so easily. It detracts from all of that, and it made me lose a lot of interest in the show. Like the ending stinger where they're being loomed over by like minotaurs or something, minotaurs, whatever, was interesting. But the location, this deserty location of it, is far less grabbing than the cool dark forest location was. And I don't know. It disappointed me. It felt like they cut the show off from so much potential just to move on to a new place with new characters earlier than they needed to. And maybe once I pick this show up again, because again, I am going to watch more of this show. I'm going to give at least a few more episodes a chance at some point. Maybe as I get deeper into this show, I'll change my mind. But that is the first impression that this show left me with, and that's not a good first impression to leave someone with. The first impression is supposed to be the strongest impression of the thing you're trying to create, and I don't feel like this show put its best foot forward. But like in the weirdest way possible, because it did, I feel, put a very strong foot forward for most of this episode, and then just like yanked it back there at the end. It's wild. It's really wild. I don't know, I have very mixed feelings about this show, clearly. I see a lot of potential here, but at the same time, I was just really not gripped enough to binge even one of these shortish Netflix seasons to see what happens. And for your show that's clearly being framed as a mystery show, I can't imagine that that's not a bad thing. But at the same time, if this show feels interesting to you guys at all, I have put at least a few clips in this video to give you guys a sense of the vibe, then I'd recommend checking it out. It may be more your thing than it is mine, and that's entirely fine. And at the very least, I will have helped you to find a thing that you enjoy through making this video. But that has been my 2 cents on the topic of Netflix's The Hollow, as per usual, though I'd like to know what you guys think of this show if you have seen it. Let me know in the comments specifically if you feel it gets better as it goes. It would be really comforting to me to know that it does, considering I do, again, intend to watch more. But either way, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video and share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content. Subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out my social medias. Links to those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.